Google product. There's already 3,500 iPad apps, and this is only the 7th day after the iPad was introduced. There's been 4 billion downloads of applications, so I mean this is here today. It's here to stay. This whole ecosystem. Downloads are a prerequisite to retention, but retention drives revenue. What do I mean by that? I mean, you remember in the early days of websites, you always ask your buddy, how many hits have you gotten? Well, that's the new question today, equally meaningless, is how many downloads did you get? It's not important how many people downloaded your program. What's important is how many people keep using your program after they download it. That's called retention. So don't fall for conversations about your downloads. Always talk about what your retention rate is. The most important thing to remember about an application for 4th generation computers is it must deliver a terrific user experience. If it doesn't, you shouldn't even build one. User experience drives ratings. Ratings determine retention, and retention drives revenue. So there's 3 things. There's 2 other things in addition to that you've got to get right building applications. An application has to be responsive. I guess it's just the nature of the device, but impatient. So users of these devices are impatient. And if they have to sit and wait for a long time to get something to load on the screen, they'll simply close the application and go somewhere else. So number 2, your applications have to be engineered to be terrifically responsive and very reliable. Users hate repeated crashes. They're a symptom of bad programming, and they've got to be reliable. If you deliver all 3, a terrific user experience, rapid response, and a reliable application, then you're going to get good user ratings. And you can't fool anybody anymore with the user rating system that comes with these devices. When you get good retention, you get good revenue. So how much should you spend to build an application? That is a big question, isn't it? And my answer is just enough to make sure you deliver a first-class user experience, a responsive app, and a reliable app. $40,000 to $80,000 is a ballpark range for most apps. Apps are not expensive if you compare them to the cost of printing presses. But let's look at the numbers and let's just see how expensive is an app. This little model was drawn from real-life experience. So let's make an assumption. Let's assume you spend $60,000 to build an app. And let's assume that you have average monthly users of 100,000. And that you spend $1,500 a month to host the app, to keep it up to date, to run it. And let's assume that you get 72 page views per month. That's a reasonable assumption from users. And let's assume that you're selling at a CPM of $10. A lot of people are getting $20 and $30, but let's assume on the low end, let's assume $10. And lastly, let's assume that we sell only 30% of our inventory. That is the national average for selling ads. So if you achieve those statistics, what happens? On a per user basis, you get $2.59 a year in revenue. The hosting cost is 18 cents. If you amortize the development cost over 3 years, that's 20 cents. So you have a gross profit of $2.21 per user. And that times the 100,000 users that I assumed on the last slide means revenue of $221,000 or a 369% return on investment. So is a 60,000 app expensive? Not if you build a good app and it's able to deliver numbers like this. I'll take a 369% return on investment any day. So you've got to look not just at app cost. Most of the people, most of the clients that we talk to, they're focused on keeping that development cost low. Well, there's nothing wrong with keeping your costs low, unless keeping your costs low keeps you from developing a lot of revenue, which makes the return high. It should be looked at, although a lot of people look at apps as an expense, it should be looked at as an investment because it's part of the mainstream of your business. Now, you've got an app. So how do you attract downloads? How do you get people to use your app? I mean, there's a lot of apps out there these days vying for your attention. The most important thing to attract downloads is get great user reviews, because before someone